and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me as always is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Every day we get closer and closer to running out of good comics by Frank Miller, and I fear that day.
Well, thankfully, you're right, but thankfully, the one we're covering today is still one of the good ones.
Still
Today
one of
we've
the good
got
ones.
the final volume of Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. This is, of course, the end of Frank Miller's main run on the comic, though there are still other Daredevil-related Frank Miller things to cover in the future. But this is the end of the main run, the actual run he had of main issues writing the story. And also there, because these are some really nice collected editions, there are a couple extra little things included at the end there. So, yeah.
About half of this is like just extra story stuff.
Half of it page-wise, but really it's only like 3 extra things. Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And
But
one of those things
one of
is
them is a whole ass graphic novel. So there's that.
one of them is a whole graphic novel, and one of them is like 10 pages long.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, getting into this non-spoiler section first, as always. Jacob, what is the final volume of Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson about?
I mean, it's so weird because technically his main run of issues ends with 191.
Uh-huh.
But I'd argue 190 is meant to be the big finale. Like,
yeah, 191 is kind of this really perfect epilogue. It's a great fucking issue. But it is
yeah, it's probably the best issue of this volume.
but
Like,
the end of the run you're right, is pretty much 190.
yeah, so we're basically trying to get to a very specific point where a very specific plot beat happens.
And Frank Miller can go write some other things.
Miller can go write some other things, also leave a lot of things unresolved.
It is going to be
Like,
weird talking about that particular thing in this non-spoiler section because it is a spoiler. It's very much a spoiler, but also it's a spoiler that pretty much everyone knows happens. So I don't really know how to approach it right now.
I'm gonna keep dancing around it.
Okay.
Because, also, if I'm gonna be honest, there's stuff leading up to that I feel I don't want to say it was rushed, but I feel like we might be missing some of the context for.
Uh,
Um,
I think I know what you're talking about, and I think I
mainly,
disagree.
mainly
I disagree actually.
there's a character who's used here, who was used earlier in the run, who reappears, and we kind of get some. Uh, we get some hints of the way Frank Miller will eventually become to be known for writing women. Uh,
I'm not sure if I agree with that here actually.
Mainly by not centering them when maybe they should be the center. Um, Especially
Mm,
with
I mean, it's a character mostly unrelated to. Wait, hang on. I'm trying to think of what character you're talking about. Are you talking about the character that is the spoiler, or the character who's not the spoiler?
no, the character is not the spoiler.
Okay, then yeah. I don't think they should be the center.
Uh, in the story that Miller's telling, with the plot he gives her, she should get some more centered than
A
what
bit,
she gets used on.
a bit more focused, but I don't think it's a huge thing to correct.
I also honestly just think that the run up to 190 gets like could have maybe used one more issue, like to stretch a couple of things. Uh, some things.
I'm finding really interesting how much I'm disagreeing with you on all this so far. Spoilers are going to be fun. Okay.
Like, here's the thing. I think this was great. Like, I genuinely do. I don't. It's partially weird because there are moments that are brilliant and amazing and probably some of the best stuff that Miller has ever written in isolation. And they don't always fit together quite as nicely. Uh, like it's so weird. Because this is a fantastic run. Like I have enjoyed every volume. I have enjoyed every volume potentially a really hot take, more than his good Batman DC stuff.
I think Volume 1 might be below, like, Dark Knight Returns, maybe, for me, but I mostly agree.
See, but Volume 1 has like some of Miller's like best art.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and it helps that Roger McKenzie isn't a particularly bad writer either.
Mhm.
Who writes most of the non-Miller stuff for. Also, I'm gonna be honest, some of the fill-in stuff, oddly enough, the shortest issue of the fill-in stuff brings this down slightly for me. Like there was a thing here that was clearly just it's a thing Frank Miller drew for Daredevil that we need to put somewhere. But it really like I
I don't think it
I have
greatly harms it, because I think it's a solid enough story, but it just has, like, nothing to do with the rest of
well
the.
no, I don't even think it's that like it's a story that makes me question like what is like I don't think it uses its premise. Um it's not a spoiler to say that there's an issue of what if in this
Yeah, yeah,
collection.
yeah,
There's an
that's
issue of what if
that's the
that
one we've been talking about, yeah.
yeah. That I'm gonna be honest, I don't think used its premise very well, but was also short, so it's not
Yeah,
terrible.
it's not gonna actively harm the book for me.
Yeah, like yeah, this is this is great. Genuinely great. I part of me also wanted more, I think I wanted a little more resolution, like in some with some stuff that I
I mean,
wasn't
part of that is just kind of the nature of comics at the time. You know, Miller ending the run isn't like a big like blowout like a lot of big creators would have these days on a run.
like
It's
Miller would have these days if he were writing this today. Well,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
he were writing this today at the same
At the time
quality.
at the time when you're like ending a run, all you're pretty much doing is wrapping up plot threads that no one else is going to realistically pick up, and just kind of leaving enough space for other writers to take over, and that's all it has to be. Really. Um,
And boy, does
that's
this
all it
leave a
had to
lot
be,
of
I should say.
space.
So,
Boy, does this
I
leave a
mean,
lot of
it
space.
does also help that there are more Frank Miller Daredevil things. There's Born Again, there's Elektra, there's Man Without Fear, which is a sort of retooling of Daredevil's early days, as done the way of Frank Miller. There's more to come. So to say like it's not a satisfying end isn't entirely accurate, because there is absolutely more. But more on that another day, I suppose. In the
Yes.
meantime, let's get into some Twitter questions.
Yes.
Yeah, so okay.
Do we just want to
Um,
do the memes
no,
first?
we'll do the questions first. First we got our friend Kian the Quark Kian at Kian the Quark. That's it. Who should write Daredevil life story? To which Jamie at Jamie underscore season 7 replies me, and Kian says citations needed. I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's kind of cheating to say Chip Zdarsky, isn't it? Because Chip Zdarsky already did Spider-Man life story, and Zdarsky is obviously incredibly well known for writing a damn good Daredevil. But I would still like to see that. I don't know. I'm not sure who else would be good to take it on.
Maybe someone who's never done Daredevil before.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know. It's not a question I have a ton of opinions on, but hey, there's that. Keen also asks, how close is Jacob to killing Joey for making him read more Frank Miller? As I explained last episode, Jacob chose to do this.
This is partially my fault.
Exactly. You were legally not allowed to be mad at me for this one. But
Now,
also,
now, now,
as mentioned, it helps that it's good. But yeah.
it helps that it's good. Now, the next time a Miller book comes up on the podcast, which I genuinely don't know when
You
that's.
now don't know when that's gonna be, and
I
I
know
do.
it's coming. I know it's somewhere on the
I will,
schedule.
here's the okay. How about this? I'll say this to sort of just give you a little hint, a little tease, if you will. There is
Tease.
there is one more Frank Miller episode coming before we hit episode 100.
You know, that narrows it down quite a bit. So I don't want to
Does
say
it?
quite a bit.
I don't
It
know if
narrows it down.
I don't know if it does.
I think that narrows it down to one of the DC episodes.
Does it? We still have a whole extra little Marvel block before episode 100.
Yeah, but the way you pitched that Marvel block to me makes me think.
I said it's new things.
Yeah, you mentioned it potentially being its own little mini largely being its own little mini arc of books. So
Miller
I
could
have
still
a
be
feeling.
involved somehow. It could just be drawn by him.
I need to reformulate my plan because I forgot he
See,
was
you
also an
forgot he's an
artist.
artist. See, Jacob, haha.
I
Um,
mean, I mean, can you blame me with some of his recent art?
no, no, I can't blame you really. But yeah, I mean, it's still possible. Anyway, next up we have, oh god, I have to scroll through all the memes. Jamie says, wonder what would happen if Frank Miller and Klaus Janson did Batman. That's the thing, they did. Um,
They did,
and
and it was.
Klaus Janson inked The Dark Knight Returns, and which might not sound like a lot, but it is the difference between The Dark Knight Returns and The Dark Knight Strikes Again. So
Yeah, this is sadly very true.
yeah,
Well, I think Miller's pencils for returns are
are just generally better.
yeah.
But also, yeah, I mean, Jansen is just a better inker. Like it's just it it's a lot of what makes the art in that I think really shine. But yeah. Anyway, but I get what you're saying. You know, if it was like a full like proper Miller Jansen Batman run, that'd be cool as hell. Yeah. Jimmy also says, "Is it as good as Born Again?" I would say no. I mean, unfortunately, not to set the expectations too high, but Born Again is absolutely the best Daredevil thing that Frank Miller ever wrote. Um, so it kind of blows his entire main run out of the water. So it was never going to be, but it is still very good. Volume 3 is this run as a whole is still fantastic. We also have a question from our.
I
I'm
haven't
sorry,
read Born Again,
you've
so
not, but we absolutely will on the podcast someday. So yeah. Let's see. We also have from our friend Rules Panda at Joey can read this. Says best ending to a run ever. I don't know about that.
I kind of disagree.
Yeah,
Um,
I disagree with that as well. But
like I on it like I think the ending to Snyder's Batman run is better than this. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
in
yeah,
terms of
there are a lot of
runs.
better endings. But again, especially because there is still more. You know, Miller did plenty more Daredevil after this. I don't think we can truly consider it an end to a run, but it is still a pretty great end to the main run, I suppose. Yeah. Also, I totally forgot about Discord questions. Let's do Discord questions.
Yes, yes, we got to do
I don't
this.
know. I totally forgot about them. First comes from our friend Andrew, friend of the podcast, says, since Miller's run is somewhat of a reimagining, do you have any desire to eventually go back and read the Stan Lee era of Daredevil? Probably not.
I was gonna say like
Probably not. I mean, like if I were to have you go back to like early days Daredevil, I'd sooner have you do like Man Without Fear or Daredevil Yellow, which are reimaginings of those early days. I don't.
I
I mean,
I would say that
it's certainly possible, but I'll say like there are a lot of other Daredevil things that I have on my list for you to read before we get to go back to Stan Lee stuff.
yeah. I mean, I'd say never.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think our latest Spider-Man episode shows I'm not enamored with Lee's writing style,
Yeah, it's kind
and
of hard
I
to be.
like
um,
it's a run that if we did it like with any Lee run, we'd need to spread it out because trying to read a
yeah,
bunch of Stan Lee comics at once is draining.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Anyway, our next set of Discord questions come from our friend Mason, who once again has escaped the hellscape that is Twitter. Says has 4 questions for us today. One, do y'all lean more Dare or Devil? Well, I suppose Dare refers to the fact that he's blind, so I suppose I lean more Devil and you lean more Dare.
or Dare, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes, right?
I suppose.
His second question says, "Whomst the fuck is the woman at the bottom?" Referring to the bottom of the cover. That is a spoiler, actually, to
Yes,
say
but that's
to
on the
say who
front
it.
cover.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it is that spoilery character we were referring to earlier in the non-spoiler section. So there's that. His third question says, "How did Frank Miller get a job for Marvel?"
I
Believe it,
believe initially as an artist.
yeah, believe it or not, Frank Miller once had talent. And
I mean,
so.
he still. It's okay. I don't. as much as we rag on Frank Miller's current art, there's still talent in the art that he does. It's just not suited really to the subjects that he's trying to make.
Yeah,
He
but like, let's be
like
real. Like if Frank Miller didn't have such a body of work before he did those variants, like he wouldn't be getting work on those variants. You know, he would not be earning those covers on the art alone.
no, he wouldn't. I mean, I've heard it said what once Frank Miller started drawing Sin City, it never stopped.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's that's
Um,
that's why we have those covers and
and yeah,
yeah.
like mm,
Anyway,
I yeah.
yeah. Mason's fourth and final question says, "I don't know anything else about Daredevil, so what is a character detail that other people don't really know about?" I suppose if you don't know much about Daredevil, he's a bit of a hoe.
I was gonna say how much of a
Matt Murdock's a bit of
fucking
a hoe.
ladies'
Yeah,
man this
he's a bit of
man
a hoe
is.
for a Catholic boy. Which also I
Yeah,
understand. It's something that I guess people on the surface level don't kind of know about Daredevil is that he's Catholic.
and Catholic guilt is
Is a big
a
part of the
big
character.
theme. Like
Yeah.
even though Miller's run doesn't go in depth with it as some others, it's still there. Like it's still
Yeah, I
informing the
feel like yeah, like
character.
it's kind of funny that people ascribe Miller with having like really done the Catholic injection when he didn't do that until Born Again. Born Again
Real okay.
yeah, Born Again is where like the big Catholic push comes from. So hence
Well,
why
because
it's called Born Again.
I
So
was going to be honest. One thing that was kind of surprising, mainly because of the show, Karen Page,
yeah,
not really here.
yeah, yeah, which is funny because she's also a big character in Born Again. um, I mean, she was a character that was around from like the very earliest Daredevil stories.
Oh yeah, because she appears in the Amazing Spider-Man crossover that we did.
She's a Stan Lee character. But yeah, she was not part of the Daredevil mythos at the time. Well, not a main player in the Daredevil mythos at the time of the Miller run. But I won't say anything about Born Again because we'll definitely get there someday. But yeah, she's kind of a key player in that. So yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So then also, back to
Jesus
Twitter.
Christ.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm not going to explain
Here's
it
the
every
thing. Here's
time.
the thing. Here's the thing. Kian warned me this was coming.
Yeah, but then Jamie as well. So, okay. So, I'm not going to explain the joke every fucking time, but quite simply, apparently now, anytime we cover anything on Fresh Face Comics, various characters and things within the comic that we're covering is just going to get related to various characters and stories and episodes of Doctor Who. So, for today,
Some genuinely clever. Some
for for
some
today's,
very weak.
let's
Kian.
let's start with you know what? Let's go with most clever to least clever. How about we do that?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay. I think the hand ones. I think they kind of take the cake. For
Yeah.
me at
No.
least. We got Kian submitting the hand question mark. With David Tennant's severed hand from
In the
from the
jar.
from the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who / Torchwood. As
And
well as Jamie.
I prefer Jamie's,
Yeah,
if I'm
Jamie's is
gonna
pretty
be
good.
honest.
The severed archaeological Eldrad hand from the Hand of Fear, from season 14 of Doctor Who. It's pretty good. Then I would say we've got I'd say Nick Fury is next with Nicholas Courtney as Brigade Leader Stewart from Doctor Who Inferno from Doctor Who season 7.
It's quite literally because they put him in an
Because
eye
they can
patch.
have an eye patch, yeah. You know, I probably should have put this next one above that. I would have said Black Widow is actually the next one, with a photo shoot for of Sophie Aldred dressed as the Virgin New Adventures book Ace McShane in the black leather suit with the gun. I look, yeah, sure. And then at the absolute bottom, which I gotta be honest, I don't even entirely get. Do you want to explain this one, Jacob?
But so in 1988, Doctor Who did a serial called The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. It's a great serial. I love it to bits. And there's a
It
character called Kingpin.
Oh, is that okay? I forgot that character's name was Kingpin. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, okay, all right. That's what I was confused about. Okay, and so Kingpin question mark is that one, and
I kind of wish
Oh
he would
man.
have gotten a little more clever and gone with one of the many crime bosses in Doctor Who's history.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I guess we got this.
I got
So
this. This is just turning into a bit, and
it is, and I genuinely worry for next episode. Like
I
so
worry
much.
for the next two episodes.
Yeah, yeah. Um oh god. Anyway, I think that finally does that was a pretty long non-spoiler section. Finally does our non-spoiler section. If you're not sticking around for spoilers, we're about to jump into spoilers. But skip to the end of the end of this episode if you want to find out what we're covering next time on the podcast. We're almost done with this current Marvel block, so you can probably guess what's kind of coming up. But I mean, hey, if you want to find out, the reveal will be there as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
also, as
Another
well,
run we're technically ending next time.
it's true. It's true. As always, link trees and everything will be in the description below. Wherever you want to follow us, keep up to date with whatever we do. As well as the Amazon links to the books we're covering today and next time on the podcast. So check all that out. That'll be in the description below. And I think it's time to get into
Yes.
spoilers. Now, I
Yes.
do have to give a warning before we get into spoilers. I kind of went a little crazy recently, and I read ahead a bunch of episodes ahead. So I reread this book, I should say, reread this book about how long ago was it? Like 2 weeks ago at this point, I want to say.
How far
Sounds about
ahead are you, Joey?
so. I stopped. So okay, so I reread this one, and then I just kind of kept going. So I reread the next episode, the one after that, and the one after that. And then I was like, you know what? If I keep going, by the time we get to recording these episodes, I'm not going to remember what happened. So I
Yeah,
should
like,
stop.
dude.
So if the events get a little fuzzy for me, that is exactly why. So let's try to do this as we open.
Well, okay. We open with Daredevil 185, which is Frank Miller doing kind of a comedy.
Yeah,
Like,
it's okay. So you know that episode of Batman the Animated Series, "The Man Who Killed Batman."
yeah, but
So Foggy Nelson is Sid the Squid. that is
uh,
that is that is the premise.
and I'm sorry. Okay, you warned me going in about that
Mhm.
as the premise.
Yeah.
And I initially thought, there's no way Miller can pull off a comedy.
Yeah. But
Like, like Miller is not a writer that is comedic.
no, you don't think associate comedy when you hear the name Frank Miller, really. Um, but here it is, and it's genuinely funny.
It's probably
uh,
got some of the best Foggy moments in the entire run.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Between that and the wedding suit, I mean, come on, it's these two moments, really.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, I mean,
I
the
love
first
the
page.
fourth wall break is so good.
I mean, I think it's because Miller under God, Miller understanding how to set a tone. This is gonna be so weird. It's always weird praising Frank Miller.
Praise
Um,
Frank Miller, Jacob. Do it.
because like the first page is this monologue from Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock,
As he
to the
changes,
audience.
yeah, as he changes from Daredevil into Matt Murdock, and
I will
and
also say, I should say, this volume has some of Klaus Janson's best work. Like,
oh yeah, Janson does some really
uh,
great stuff throughout this one. But yeah, Daredevil is basically just warning the audience, "Hey, I'm not the main character of this issue. It's about my friend Foggy Nelson. Let's go."
and he doesn't know I'm Daredevil. So please don't tell him.
It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, we begin
So
our
then,
actual story on
by sending up some film noir tropes of having a down on her luck dame wander into the office of Nelson and Murdoch. This dame is in fact Heather Glenn, who is a character we've established and has been a big part of the run. But Miller's doing a comedy, so and it, weirdly, especially for Miller, because I know how Miller treats his female characters in certain books.
Mhm. Some books that we've
Uh,
read.
some books that we've read, some books that I'm sure we're going to make me read. Um, like Miller. is very clever in sending up the tropes by
Mhm.
not losing Heather's personality, but also keeping the this is femme fatale wandering into our gumshoe's office, and
Yeah.
our gumshoe is poor hapless Foggy Nelson.
I love
Uh,
him. I love him. And so yeah, so she warns him of these about what the fuck is she warn him about? It's already happening. God damn it.
we're continuing the plot with Glen Industries being taken over by criminals.
That's the one.
Uh, and the criminals that are making bombs. Uh, that for mysterious forces that I don't think we ever actually know. Like we don't ever really know exactly who. Um, it's it's implied to be part of the Kingpin's plans, but the Kingpin's plans are many and
Yeah,
very.
this is one of those things I was kind of talking about in the non spoiler section where it was just like kind of leave that open for whoever's taking over next because Frank Miller's plotline isn't really hey Kingpin has taken over the city. Frank Miller's plotline is the Hand.
Is the hand, and yeah, uh, but also we get just some sparkling dialogue as Matt gets to be here ever so briefly, comforts Heather, who, remember, they are engaged.
mhm.
These two are engaged. But that's going to develop so interestingly throughout the course
Yeah,
of this.
yep.
Um,
And so Matt goes off to do Daredevil things and investigate.
Mainly guard over Foggy, who is going to investigate Glen Industries
Yes, so
himself.
he's yeah. So Foggy and Heather go to like Glen Industries themselves. Matt listens from outside. They kind of get nowhere with
Looking
this,
so smug, like
right?
there is just a, Janson
I,
throughout this
I,
entire
I don't know what entirely smug. I would almost go with like proud of Foggy.
a little bit both. I read a lot of it as kind of smugness.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we have Foggy trying to be the gumshoe that he is, immediately being like, "Yes, I'm going to get to the bottom of this." Uh, you know, uh, and I may run into a foot or two of red tape, but I'll get to the bottom of this. No ifs, ands, or buts of what's going on.
Yes, and
Immediately, the next page,
it's such a good montage of just these three
God,
panels of
it's
like him getting turned away and with speech bubbles that all begin with if, and but.
but
So they get this great illustration. I love the illustration of the whole like he talked before about the foot or two of red tape. Janson draws this great panel, not even a panel because it has no borders of Foggy walking away with like a bunch of this string of red tape behind him with the narration that says, "Did I say a foot of red tape? Make that a mile, a long twisted mile that leads to nowhere." It's so good. And
and
so
his narration goes on about how he's going to it's basically he's thinking to himself, well, what would Matt do? Matt would go down to the underworld. So Foggy's going to go down to the underworld, and he says, "I am a hunter. The city is my jungle. My quarry will not elude me."
it's so good. And so he goes to one of these bars, these seedy bars where
He hits in a panel. He hits several bars, and just each time turn the fuck away because he's Foggy Nelson.
yeah, until he eventually hits this one where he does start to actually get somewhere, involving one Turk Barrett, which how can you not love? Um, but uh,
Not before being tricked into being told his shoes are untied.
yep.
But I'm
Uh,
wearing loafers as he's hit, just knocked clean out. Oh, like, couldn't we get this Frank Miller in the modern day? Like,
I would actually take this. It would actually be funny. Um, I mean, I hope it would be funny. I don't know. It might not be. But yeah, he's taken to this group of mobsters, and in being interrogated, the lights eventually go out. Foggy gets one good hit in where he basically uh
Who's the guy who's been
He,
holding him?
he does Three Stooges where he he pokes the guy in the eyes. But then as the lights are out, Daredevil takes out all these other like mobsters in here. When the lights come back on, it looks like Foggy took them all out himself. And so we decide to take Foggy to the Kingpin.
We also start calling him Guts Nelson.
So good. Um, yeah, Foggy is brought before the Kingpin, and the Kingpin scares the wits out of Foggy as Daredevil in the background is like actually handling the situation around him. And Kingpin is like slowly, he doesn't believe Guts Nelson's story. But
This would be the
eventually
first time Foggy's actually meeting the Kingpin, isn't it?
it
Like,
is, yeah, yeah. And so Kingpin eventually gets word that all of his men have been defeated and finds out that Guts Nelson works with Daredevil, suddenly making the Kingpin very afraid of Guts Nelson.
there is this one panel of Foggy, eyes wider than saucers, scared shitless, as the Kingpin finds out that everybody has disappeared.
It's so good. Oh my god. Such a good twist. I love it. Um but yeah, Kingpin it hears from the rest of his men, finds out how they were defeated. Daredevil sends a message to the Kingpin: "Don't mess with Guts Nelson." And so uh, Foggy plays up his new reputation, literally blowing cigar smoke into Wilson Fisk's face and being let go by the Kingpin, taken back, starting to be taken away by Turk. Foggy slips away, sending Turk off on a plane by himself, ending out the
To
issue.
Chicago.
Beautiful stuff. Oh
It
my god.
is
What a
hilarious.
freaking issue. Just imagining
Uh,
as he's walking away, literally the end of Man Who Killed Batman, a big shot at last. It's so good. I love it, I love it. Anyway, Daredevil 186.
yes.
Actually, this is we haven't really talked about this. Um, the covers at this point of the run get kind of simplistic, and for the better, I would say.
Yeah. Never too simple that they don't tell you a little bit of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also simple enough where it may not be immediately apparent.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I love.
may not. Sometimes it's obvious. Like what's going on. Like the cover for 188 uh,
Mhm.
is one that sort of tells you fairly obviously.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I do love especially the one for the next issue, 187. That one's perfect. Um, yeah. Anyway, 186 here. We open on who's watching him? I forgot.
Foggy. This is like
Oh yeah,
right. This is
is it meant to be right
literally
after?
yeah. This is literally right after
Oh
because we
yeah.
are still dealing with the Glen Industries art.
Yep,
Uh,
you're correct. And then, yeah, so Foggy and Daredevil part ways, and Daredevil once again watches over Glen Industries, and
Heather
we
is confronting the board. Uh,
Mhm. We are introduced to a villain known as Stiltman. Stilts. This is look,
I mean,
look at him. I love him.
this is a Stan Lee villain, right?
I don't know. I think either
It
that or
has to
I'm pretty
be.
sure. Yeah, it probably is.
Um, because I have a feeling it was like, well, I've essentially reinvented like the Kingpin. Why don't I reinvent Stiltman?
Sure.
It
Everybody
doesn't
does.
work,
No,
really.
I
Like
mean, sorry. It works, but it never really gets any better than what you think it is when you first see it.
it is. You can feel Miller wanting to try to take it seriously, but this is a man on stilts. Like massive hydraulic stilts. That is our villain.
Yeah.
And he's he's a hitman on stilts. Hitman on stilts. What even is this issue?
It's a really funny setup. Come on, you can't not love it. But yeah, we then get this great scene of Turk talking to Melvin Potter,
Who
and
is now just the owner of a costume shop.
yeah, I
As,
mean, hey, you love to see it. Character development, man.
that's great. Um, and then someone who is definitely not Stiltman trying to buy gloves because he lost a glove.
See, okay, wait, no, I was right about this. That guy
Oh,
that started the issue was not Foggy. That was
it
Stiltman.
is. So it is still.
Yeah.
They are drawn the same, and the
No,
only
they're
thing
not.
really
I was thrown off because Foggy doesn't wear glasses.
that's true.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, so yeah, so Stiltman is here.
and Turk is trying to figure out who this person is.
Turk recognizes him and calls him Leapfrog. Um, and Stiltman is obviously not Leapfrog, so he throws him off his scent. Pays for the gloves and leaves the shop. We then get a little scene where we catch up with in the offices of Nelson and Murdoch. Just this great little scene where we kind of get Matt Murdock being a dick, but we understand that like Matt is so importantly. A lot of this volume kind of relies on Matt mentally dealing with the fallout of Elektra's death. Though he has gotten over, we saw him kind of get over it by not killing Bullseye in the last volume. Here we see sort of like how it just like kind of affects Matt's personality going forward. We'll see that especially in his relationship to Heather going forward. But then in this scene, we notice something is not quite right with Matthew Murdoch as Foggy continues talking to him. I love the way this is done visually, how the words keep getting bigger and bigger until they're taking up like the whole panel, and that Matt's super enhanced hearing is starting to go haywire, and everything is now super loud for him. And I love, especially love on the next page, that panel where like it's literally like a single letter taking up the whole page, and Matt is just so small in it. It looks so good.
Well, then the next panel, not even a letter; it's just the purple background
Yeah.
of uh, uh, of the A, and it is it's these moments that really make the issue work because the plot of this issue is Stiltman.
Mhm.
So Matt, and we're basically trying to pull things together for the Glen Industries case. Take some evidence to the assistant district attorney, uh, and uh, we have
Then we
some nice dialogue here, very briefly with Matt.
yeah.
Before
Before Turk attacks Stiltman and becomes Stiltman himself, I gotta say, I just looked up Stiltman in between our first introduction of him and this happening here. Turk has been Stiltman previously.
of course he has that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. So Turk as Siltman goes to confront the Kingpin. Um, and well, it's kind of just insane. Um, we get one of the few scenes uh involving Vanessa. Uh,
Yes, great to see her again. This is one of those things where like one of those plot lines that Miller sets up and well, it'll actually get resolved in this volume, but not in the main run.
yeah, which was actually quite interesting. The
Yeah,
way
yeah.
uh
So yeah, we see still Fisk is still looking into ways to help her because yeah, she's still memory lost and all that. Yeah.
So, Siltman, who has been robbed,
hmm Goes to
goes
goes to the police and
specifically Lieutenant Nicholas Manolis
mhm,
and tries to get him to summon Daredevil with like
and
a
and he
hotline
and he does. He
or
summons
a beacon or
Daredevil.
something.
Yeah, he summons Daredevil, and we actually get this really funny line where he says, some evidence for you, Nick." And Wilbur, anytime you want to start talking, go right ahead. I'm all ears." Just a stupid little line that I really appreciate. But yeah, we then see Foggy out with his wife briefly. Or sorry, no, with this is
With
no
Heather.
Heather. I forgot that she was blonde again. Sorry, Jesus.
That is not the only time that this has happened, Joey.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sorry.
Basically, we get some, uh, relationship troubles of they both realize Matt's been acting strangely, uh, and that uh, that there's also this fear that when Glen Industries goes down, Heather's not going to have much left uh,
Mhm.
for herself, uh, for uh, fairly fairly good reasons. That's a plot point we're going to be picking up later. We go back to uh,
The
uh,
assistant DA who is attacked by Turk, and she's taken out of the window by Turk on gigantic stilts. It's worth noting. I don't think we really described what Stiltman looks like for those that don't know listening.
yeah,
Stiltman,
sorry, they're
yeah,
giant
they're
stilts,
giant stilts, but like literally like taller than fucking buildings.
like
Stilts.
skyscrapers. Like, I mean, far be it from me to
It's
question physics in a comic book,
it's so funny. Come on, just
but
accept
the
it.
physics don't work.
It's so funny. Come on. So anyway, I do love the visual though of the assistant DA being pulled out of her window and she just starts beating the piss out of Turk in the middle of the air as they're on these giant stilts
I
together.
mean, because Turk is pathetic.
Yeah,
Turk is fucking
he's
pathetic.
we love Turk. Come on. But yeah, Daredevil comes in to save the day. He gets the assistant DA to safety and fights Turk as Stiltman. As Turk falls off of his stilts to the ground, it actually creates this really great dramatic moment where the sound of him falling creates this crash and really fucks with Matt's senses. Um,
It's also implied that the stilts break into three. Like,
yeah, it's so funny. I love it. Come on, it's so good. Um, but yeah, Matt then goes to Heather, who then okay, this scene at the end of the issue here. So it's kind of implied that the tone of the scene is Matt strong arming Heather to marry him. Um,
yeah,
which it is implied also that this is based on Matt's experience with Elektra's death. So Matt acting weird results in him being a dick, kind of strong arming Heather to marry him.
I
But
mean, it's
also,
not.
let
Here's
us
the
not
thing:
go ahead.
it's not framed as Matt doing a good thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, that is the important thing. It's like yeah, like something is wrong with Matt. Is very much the message that Miller is sending here. Which honestly, I would say this plot line in particular is why the epilogue issue 191 works as well as it does because it is all of this sort of like any sort of like odd character moments we see with Matt here where Miller is calling out him acting weird is is why that epilogue issue is so important and why I really can't wait to talk about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Anyway, let's go and
Um,
do into the next issue, I guess. Unless he has something else to say. It sounded like he did.
I mean, I think the way this plot line develops is kind of important and something that I wish Miller would have taken into his future writings a little bit. Like he
Hmm.
gets it here,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
because Heather is not only being taken advantage of, she's being isolated, and Matt's being kind of abusive. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
and Miller is aware that that is abusive. Is aware that that behavior needs to be dismantled. Uh, in whatever way that it can. But
Yeah.
Daredevil
Anyway,
180.
Daredevil 187. What a fucking cover! Oh my god! I love that cover so much. It's so fucking good. Perfect. I love it. I love it. I
It's
love it. I love
probably
it.
the simplest.
If you don't know what it is right off the bat, listeners, please go look up Daredevil 187. It is such a great cover. Fucking beautiful.
It
Anyway,
is so simple, but
it's so
so
good.
effective.
Oh my god. Anyway, opening up here. Once again, actually, this could also be a great cover. Is Matt still struggling with the whole? His hearing is really off. All the words are gigantic around.
Everything is intensive. The name of the story is literally Overkill.
Mhm.
Uh,
We get
and
this
we
great scene opening where he's swinging through the city and flying about and whatever, and he just he falls and he tries to catch himself on this clothesline and it snaps and he falls into some trash and cans below, and it's just having a really hard time working through all this. And then we
he
get a
realizes there's only one person who can help him.
yes,
But then we
and
need to get another character to re-enter the story. Hi,
yeah,
Black Widow.
yeah, hi Black Widow. And first off, what a fucking scene she enters on. I love what Janson does here with the art.
Oh, I
It's
think my
oh
one,
god,
like one of my notes is Jansen does some of the best action I've ever seen.
because it's worth noting Janson is penciling, inking, and coloring this issue. This is entirely him. There's minimal dialogue. Janson is doing the storytelling here, and he is fucking crushing it. We get this great scene in the morgue, in the city morgue, where Black Widow is fighting these assassins. If you've been following Daredevil, you should be able to figure out who these guys are. But yeah, she's fighting off these other assassins who are trying to look for a body here in the city morgue. But really, it's just this extended action sequence, and it looks so fucking good. A lot of it is silhouetted with these deep reds behind them. It
I mean,
is,
it's pretty much all silhouetted unless we get an in-universe pop of light
yeah,
somehow.
yeah.
Uh, and even then, the in-universe pops of light don't fully we don't get colors. We get monotones. Like there's this great gray monotone of most of Black Widow when we first properly see her.
Mhm.
Uh,
And the light from the window is hitting her, and you get this great casting of light across the center of her body, and you can see her face. It looks so good. Oh god, I love it
we
so
find out that they are stealing the body of Kirigi,
much. Mhm.
and
And these are hand
Natasha
assassins.
gets
So
these are hand assassins.
yeah, so when she fights them, their bodies dissolve and whatever. Yeah, so it's
And
yeah,
then she gets
she
poisoned,
is.
and thus begins such a weird plot line of what this poison does.
Mhm,
Because later in this issue, it gets described as giving her super cancer.
mhm.
I, it's
I don't hate it, honestly. I don't. Yeah, it is what
it
it
just
is.
I don't know. It's one of the maybe maybe it's because I am a scientist
And
that it
but you're reading a comic book, Jacob. Please.
I know, but it's also it's this tiny detail that feels so against the tone that Miller has been going for this entire time.
Eh,
Uh,
I mean, I think it's kind of a natural extension of the more weirder side of this run that Miller's been setting up specifically with the hand. Um, I don't know. I think it works. Anyway, Daredevil breaks a window of a pool hall, and it's not Josie's, which is nice. So, yeah, although it is framed just like the panels of previous issues, where he's broken a guy through a window at a bar slash pool hall in this case. Um, yeah, Daredevil's trying to get some information for these guys, and his senses start messing with him in the middle of this interrogation, and
as he's
so these
also specifically looking for Stick.
yeah, and so these guys are able to get the jump on him though because he starts his senses are heightened, more than usual, that is. So
We find out Stick is working at Josie's and has hand assassins come after him,
mhm,
all silently, which is great.
Once again, another great action sequence with minimal dialogue. So Janson is kind of carrying this part of the issue. Yeah. Daredevil then goes to find Stick, and once again has another one of those like hypersense attacks as he is surrounded by cars and car horns. Again, just a great page, just leading up to this single panel that just says "honk" as this entirely like white colored Daredevil just like it stands there, just like completely like unable to do anything there. He does eventually make his way over to Josie's. Or actually, no, he's being beat up outside of Josie's by these other guys here. There is a cabbie that is watching him from the side. We don't know these characters, do we? The cabbie?
I think so.
No, because the cabbie like tries to like come to Daredevil's rescue, and which is able to distract the guy attacking Daredevil long enough for Daredevil to get back into it and fight him off. Just this nice little moment where this cabbie like helps him. He's just happy to help. It's nice.
Yeah. So a scene with Shield.
Yeah, and one Nicholas Fury. Yeah, you made an interesting observation, messaging me about about this Nick Fury appearance, which was simply that, if I recall correctly, white Nick Fury is just weird to you.
I know the character started out as white and was white
for most of his history.
for most of his history.
That really is just like there really is just like a sign of like just how deeply Sam Jackson affected that role. In the best way possible. But like
here's the thing: Sam Jackson was like what I believe was the model for Ultimate Nick Fury, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Because like I knew like even before the MCU was like a thing, I knew Nick Fury was like Samuel L. Jackson. Like I don't know how. Probably because Ultimate Spider. Like I had a friend who I think read Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Like as a young kid, potentially, and that could be why. Because I don't like. It's gonna happen anytime Nick Fury shows up and he's white, and it's just gonna be like, this is. It's like, no, this is wrong. Who is this pretender?
I love it. But yeah, so yeah, Nick is learning about what happened to Natasha as she was poisoned, and goes to talk to her about it. And I really like the way that Janson draws these panels here, just these like really somber, like knowing looks between these characters. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, just good stuff.
Matt makes to Josie's is promptly beat up by Josie's. Meanwhile, Stick, knowing that Daredevil is hurt and is coming for him, is Stick. Like, a couple of my notes was just Stick is Stick, aka mysterious and like he's clearly cares but has the air of not caring. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. We also get introduced to this weird idea that Stick and others that he has worked with have trained themselves to speak telepathically.
Yeah,
it's a fun
telepathy.
It's a fun idea. I like it. But yeah, then we see the hand with the body of Kirigi, which they
as he is resurrected.
Yeah, he is brought back to life, and that is where the issue ends, taking us into Daredevil number 188. Another great cover. I just like that. It's nice. This is the Widow's Bite. So opening on Black Widow fighting off some guys here that are doing some. If I'm remembering correctly, is this who are these guys? I forget.
They're agents of Shield.
Oh, that's right. She's training. Okay, cool. All right, gotcha. Easy. Yeah, because yeah, things that she still has the cancer, the sort of cancer, the cancer-ish. I don't know.
The poison super cancer.
Yeah,
that's going to dissolve her.
You know how it is.
Yeah. So
Then she talks to a dude
oh,
named Ivan who looks like Tom Selleck, and talks to him about, like, how she's been diagnosed with poison cancer. You know how it is. Goes off to find Daredevil, and then we
a
catch up.
lot of this issue is her searching for Daredevil and not finding it because, well, Memphis put himself into a sensory deprivation tank.
Mhm. Well,
Basically,
I don't think he did it himself. I think Stick did it to him.
st- yeah, Stick did. Uh,
And yeah, so that Matt can sort of hopefully work out his hypersense problem. Black Widow is still looking for him. She finds Heather obsessing over Matt, drinking her life away, crying over a picture of Matt. My God, this woman is a mess.
well, it's
Um,
it's because Heather doesn't actually want to marry the man. Like,
yeah, yeah,
it's very specific that Matt is being an abusive asshole, and it's his destructive streak is causing his friends to have their own streaks of destruction. Uh,
yeah.
we find out the hand descending Kirigi after Stick.
Yep.
Uh,
And let's see. What next? Oh yeah, Foggy. Black Widow meets up with Foggy, or no, she doesn't actually talk to him yet. She does talk to him
no,
eventually, right?
she does talk to
Yeah,
him eventually
yeah.
because they get
She's
a
spot.
plan.
Yeah,
To,
she's which is a hell of a scene, but for now she's just spying on him, trying to find out where Matt might be. Um,
honestly, a lot of the dialogue in this issue is kind of recappy, like
yeah, a little bit.
about how Matt is missing. Now we have to get some exposition of to Matt about that. Stick has the hand who's after him, and that they want him dead, and some other people dead. And Matt has to leave the tank, and Matt's like, "No, I'm helpless. No, you're not. You're stupid." Uh, and then
And so Stick just leaves him there. um, then Kingpin, we catch up with the Kingpin then briefly, where he is literally talking to Marlon Brando. It looks like, like this guy is straight up drawn to look like Marlon Brando from The Godfather.
other
Like, there's hardly a difference. It's just him. Anyway, yeah,
Natasha comes in mainly trying to find Matt, and
she asked Kingpin where Matt might be, or sorry, where Daredevil might be, and naturally he does not know.
she begins physically dissolving, like
You
physically
know how
dissolving.
poison cancer works. Come on, this is basic shit.
Uh, the hand is on their way to find Stick, and then we get a pep talk from Stick.
And a pep
Uh,
talk from Stick is kind of the exact opposite of a pep talk.
yeah,
So there's
um,
that.
but then we get probably my favorite panels in this entire volume as Stick.
Panels or pages?
Uh, it's the single page.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, the whole page where Stick just stops communicating with Matt. Well, Stick is attacked, and so Matt realizes that. So important to note for those listening, the format of these pages up to this point where Matt is talking to Stick has been 8 panels, 4 of Matt in the tank, 4 of Stick outside, with speech bubbles in between of them communicating
not speech
telepathically.
bubbles,
Thought bubbles
thought
because they're
bubbles,
communicating
because
telepathically.
telepathy.
Yeah. And so what is great about this format change then is when Stick is attacked, they sort of lose their connection. And so the panels become 4 of Matt inside the tank and just 4 completely blank white panels.
Matt, I should say, hurling into the fetal position. Uh,
Yeah, ending in this really haunting single panel where he just thinks to himself that he's scared and then decides
yeah,
to leave the tank to help Stick. It's such a
yeah.
great moment.
And the
I
whole
just
thing is Matt needs to basically pull himself back together because the radiation has worn off. he's the one who should be in control of his own hypersenses, and it's his own focus. Is the whole idea. Solid idea, good use of grief.
Mm-hmm. It's
Uh,
it's it's the weird Spider-Man 2 plot twist where it's like you just didn't believe in yourself, so you didn't have powers. Um, so
at least now that it's his powers were going haywire and not he didn't
yeah,
have
yeah,
powers.
yeah. So it at least makes sense. Like it's literally it's pretty much just like Matt's anxiety manifesting itself as his power as being unable to control his powers. It's really cool. But yeah. So the hand is attacking Stick. Matt gets up to help. However, Stick has his own help on. And so this is of course then when Black Widow arrives, still slowly dissolving like a hand agent, collapsing
Also,
in
we
front
should
of
say
Matt.
Kuragi is dead, possibly? Question mark.
Yeah, they
Like,
killed Fergie again. Yeah.
yeah, it's like great. You were such a threat, man.
I mean,
Uh,
realistically, the whole bringing Kirigi back to life is really just to establish what they do with that other character eventually.
yeah, it's
So
that resurrection is in play.
yeah,
Yeah.
which yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Natasha collapses in front of Matt, and we end the issue there, taking us into Daredevil number 189. Another fantastic cover. I love the way that Matt's face is just like shrouded in shadow there.
I
It's
think
really good.
this is a single issue that ends up going for a lot on the
Mhm.
secondhand market. I mean, I know
Oh,
a lot of
really?
individual issues of Miller's Daredevil run go for a lot.
Is this the big cliffhanger? Yeah, it's the big cliffhanger on this one. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Siege. It's basically a
Siege.
giant action sequence. Is basically what it is.
Yeah.
We do begin by hand agents watching outside and Six men helping to heal Natasha, which they're able to do pretty easily. And
I mean,
that's that.
it's Frank Miller is a fan of like kung fu movies and Asian mysticism, and that's kind of the vibe he's going for here, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
which is honestly a little bit problematic, but like it kind of goes over my head because I know what all like in terms of Frank Miller is problematic. This is kind of down on the list.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's pretty far down. I don't think you need to worry about the minor time when he was like, "Hey, by the way, we used some ancient magic to heal Natasha." I don't think you need to really worry about that when he wrote Holy Terror. So, um, anyway, so Matt and Natasha catch up, and we get sticking on the conversation. Everyone's kind of back to their normal selves, and they are preparing for an attack from the hand, and that is what this becomes because the hand attacks, and we have a giant fight scene.
it is a literal siege, and for a lot of it, there's not a lot of dialogue. And
It's
I
just
mean,
Klaus Janson fucking crushing it.
I am
Um,
sure, knowing what I know about the way Miller scripts things, there's probably a lot of details in the script, based
mhm,
on what I know from a script for a much later Miller comic. Uh,
mhm.
but
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
imagine,
I'm sure Miller put a lot of work into like describing how this would work out, but I mean,
like there's
honestly, it's when you're taking it in, it's Klaus Janson doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I think.
okay. I will say this was one of those issues that seems to have been happening a lot recently, where I just kind of went back and looked at the art after
Yeah,
reading it the first
yeah,
time because like, ooh, the art is pretty.
yeah.
Um,
Thankfully, this issue mostly is art, so there's that at least. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
until we get to the point where uh, the siege is over. Uh,
Well, the siege ends pretty dramatic.
yeah,
So one of six guys, Matt, Natasha, Stick, and six guys realize they're very much outnumbered, and there's only one way to end this fight, and that is that Stick and this guy was named Claw, I think, have to
absorbs a bunch of energy.
until they magically explode, killing all the hand guys around them, and leaving Matt, Natasha, and the other guy whose name I'm blanking on right now. Basically leaving them all in
His
safety.
name
And
is literally just Stone.
that's it. Stone and Claw. But yeah, so Stone, Matt, and Natasha are left. Stick is dead. Massive development, probably another reason why this issue goes for a lot, because character deaths go for a lot when it comes to like selling individual issues. I do love that panel in the collector's edition. It's page 112, the big like half a page panel
Yeah,
of Matt just after Stick dies, just taking that in, like, oh, so good. Yeah, just really good stuff. Even Stone, who like isn't who at this point actually becomes like a really nice, genuine character.
I mean,
Like has to
partially
take
out of
them in as
necessity,
well.
partially just out of necessity that like we
He's
don't
he's
have.
the only other guy left. Yeah.
He's the only guy left, so we need to get the audience on his side.
Mm-hmm. So we actually
More.
like take some time to like reflect on like his connection to Stick and his personal mission against the Hand as well. And he ends up becoming pretty important towards the end of the run here, which I really appreciate. I think that's really cool.
And then Natasha gets cleaned up.
Yep.
He gets to flirt
And
with Matt and
yep.
finds out that Matt is getting married next week.
Yep.
Um,
At which
then
point, conveniently, Heather comes here and sees everyone. She's quite drunk, and Natasha could just immediately tell how
Natasha
horrible this
clocks
is.
exactly what's going on.
Yeah. And
Like
so Natasha and Matt go to or sorry, yeah,
so.
wait, so where does Matt go? Oh yeah, Matt goes to the docks and Natasha's like, "Hey, I will go a different place." At which
Well,
point
okay,
she
I will say Natasha at first tries to talk to Matt and find like, hey, you're like she's clearly like, hey, you're being an asshole. Maybe you just stop. And it's like, oh, well, and it's like, well, and Matt's like, well, no, not gonna pry. We're going to the docks. Like, yeah, sure, you go. I'm gonna go uptown.
yeah, when in fact she is going to see one Franklin Nelson who's eating a sandwich like the king that he is. She goes to see him and is like, "Hey, you know what's crazy? We got to break these guys up." Well, importantly, Foggy tells her about Elektra and what happened with her. And this is also I actually really like the way that Miller writes this conversation, because he's playing with the fact that Natasha knows everything about Matt's dual life, and Foggy speaking of Matt like just as Matt, and none of the
Yeah.
Daredevil shit.
What's
Um,
also interesting is I find it interesting that Miller doesn't portray Natasha as like,
Jealous ex girlfriend.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's more she actually cares for Matt, and
yeah, and she's
it's a
like
very
genuinely,
fine line to write.
yeah,
I
but it
have a
works.
feeling modern day Miller could not write that line. Like it
But the
would be
important thing is that he did at one point do that.
yes.
So
So
Foggy and Natasha get up to some shit, and they decide to forge Heather and Matt's handwriting to write notes to each other, breaking up with
yes,
each other. My God, what a twist! What a scene! No dialogue. You just see the letters written to each other, and Heather cries as Matt tries to call her, and Matt looks at the note himself. It's so good. Um,
and
Really great
honestly,
scene.
it's like I want to call this terrible resolution, but that makes it sound negative. It is a terribly good resolution. Like the events are terrible, but it's so good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a bad relationship all around, and you're really kind of happy to see it end. Maybe not necessarily end this way, but you're happy to see it end.
and then
Um,
we get the tease that well, we're resurrecting Elektra next time, guys.
yeah, yeah, and I love that black page with her face on it. It says next issue resurrection. That just ends it like, oh, it's so good. Um, we didn't actually describe how this happens though. Stone tells them about it. Tells Natasha and Matt about it, as he's like aware of some of the Hand's schemes.
Mainly because they're trying to resurrect Elektra as their own champion.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
And
Bring us
the
to
plot of 190
yeah,
kind of took me by surprise.
yeah. It was surprising what way?
So I had a feeling Elektra was going to be resurrected.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask. Is this something you knew about? I totally forgot to ask you about this.
I I didn't know I didn't know how it happened, but I knew it happened. Like
Yeah, I mean,
like
she's a character that is still prevalent in Marvel comics today. So yeah, it has to happen at some point. Um,
I also feel like it's a resurrection that Miller had been foreshadowing since the death. Like
yeah, what I think is important about uh, this resurrection happening is that like it's not like it's not like he killed her off and was like okay, and then was kind of like forced by editorial or fan demand or something to bring her back eventually. It was more like this is the story he wanted to tell. You know, she was always meant to come back somehow. It's not a Jason Todd thing where or say a Bucky Barnes thing. You know, where it's just like you have to retroactively make it work somehow. Like no, this was always the goal in killing Elektra off.
yeah, it was always meant to be a temporary death. I'm not entirely sure if it was always I'm not entirely sure if I mean Miller knew he was leaving the book by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And 190 is a double-sized issue. Um, I wasn't expecting Matt to be so resistant to Elektra coming back. Uh, in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of this next issue is they're trying to stop it.
Yeah,
Uh, also, we get
which is probably also why the Heather Matt breakup is so important to this point in Matt's life. That like a lot like we mentioned, like a lot of his reaction to Heather and their relationship in this is the fallout from Elektra's death, and so putting Matt in a position where he has to be ready to not have to choose to not bring back his other girlfriend, his one could argue his true love in this case, is a big deal for his character. And
definitely the person that Frank Miller ships him with.
yeah, yeah, and I think most people would agree. Chip Zdarsky certainly agrees. Yeah. So anyway, so opening here on the prologue, I do love this prologue, and I love this whole sort of like book ending of the issue that Miller does, of Elektra trudging through the snow here, and yeah, I like the narration here. It works really well. Um,
Being taken in by the hands and
mhm,
being trained, uh, uh, being trained first by Stick, uh,
mhm.
and then being let go from that training. Uh, Basically, we get a lot of Elektra's backstory here.
Yeah, and it works. It's actually really effective. There's a reason this issue is double length, and it's mostly to do this backstory, but also to give Miller the time to like wrap up the story properly, which I think he does.
It also earns the double length status. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't feel artificially inflated,
mhm,
uh, which something that could happen uh, when you get just a random double length issue in the middle
yeah,
of a
yeah,
story like this.
mhm,
Uh, but uh, this is one where we delve into Electra, the young Electra's psyche, wanting to prove herself to Stick, uh, wanting to go out against the Hand herself, uh, and then
and eventually being taken into the hand by them, sort of killing her one master and her sensei, I should say, and being left with that. And before then cutting into the present day at the time, I should say, um, and it's implied, I guess, that a lot of this backstory stuff was like Stone telling Matt about where this warrior that the Hand are looking for sort of came from, and why they're looking for her now, why they're trying to bring her back. I love the title page here then that we get with Stanley Presents Resurrection. Um, what a fucking title page with them with the casket with Elektra's body in it. Oh my
Like we
god,
see a full-on corpse.
it's fucking grim. It's so grim. And yeah, and then followed by the credits page with all the tombstones with the various writer artist credits on it. Very cool stuff. We then go into this the sort of fight scene where they're fighting in this graveyard. The Hand, Stone, Daredevil, Natasha, everybody's here. It's a great time. We catch up with the Kingpin briefly here, which it's been a while. I forget why this scene is here actually.
It's it's here because people are sending people after the Kingpin. There's a mutiny going on. That again, I feel like this is meant to be like a setup for whoever's coming next to deal with.
I am now blanking on who took over the run after him actually.
Uh I mean I wouldn't know. Uh uh Doing a quick look at who wrote 192. Um Alan Brennert,
I do not know who that is.
who if I'm uh who seems to have literally written that one issue, and that's
Oh
it.
god damn it!
So not
Son of a
not
bitch.
a not a
Not,
not a permanent
not a full
writer.
run. Not a full run.
Larry Hama might be
Oh, okay,
the next
gotcha,
person to actually take over properly. Uh,
gotcha.
I know that's a name that is a fairly well regarded name for the
Yeah.
time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, getting back into the issue, Daredevil does eventually resolve to go to the Kingpin himself and say, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should team the fuck up." And
To take down the Hand, very enemy of my enemy is my friend.
yep, which is
Uh,
actually it's really fitting. I think it really works. Um, get more of a Daredevil working to help tweak down some of Kingpin's enemies in order to sort of, I guess, sweeten the deal, which makes sense.
basically, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
Where we
Uh,
get, Turk Barrett hitting the head with a club. I like seeing Turk beat up. It's very fun to watch.
it's
Uh,
always fun. We love it. But yeah, we then go over
we find out
to
that the resurrection ritual is going to happen at an abandoned church.
yep,
Uh,
where once again get some grim fucking visuals we see of the Hand with Elektra's pale corpse in front of them, ready to resurrect. When Stick and Stone, not Stick, Daredevil and Stone, Daredevil and Stone arrive to help fight off the Hand. Natasha arrives as well. The church quickly gets it turns to flames. I don't know who starts the
it turns
fire.
out it turns out that it was part of the plan. Uh,
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
like it turns out, they actually planned a siege to stop this by burning the church down. Now, in the chaos, Matt hears a heartbeat in Elektra and uh, gives her corpse a kiss uh, while the chaos happens, uh, and then everything sort of falls apart as everyone tries to leave. Uh, and we eventually, end in sort of the calm afterwards of uh, it turns out the Kingpin ended up saving Matt's life afterward. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Stone is still in the fire. Um, Ends up dying in the fire. Um,
Natasha
and
ends
then
up leaving with Matt, and then we end on this great epilogue where we see Elektra fully revealed in the snow here, um, actually alive in the end, white suit and all, full on. I would argue, it's this somewhat like religious imagery of person wearing all white coming back from the dead, whatever. It's cool. It's a cool moment, and ends off. I would say that's, a lot. I think would argue that is the end of the main story of the run, at least. Very clearly setting up other things that Miller wants to do, such as there's a whole ass Electra series that he wrote.
I love the fact that Matt doesn't know she's alive. Like,
yes, yeah, they make a point of that. Like Matt can't know.
Which, again, another thing that kind of shocked me,
Mhm.
if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, because obviously, it's not a spoiler to say he definitely knows these days.
Well, not even that, because I know that the Matt Electra relationship is the popular relationship, and I
Yeah.
know while Miller wrote the relationship very well in mostly volume two,
Mhm.
um, it, there isn't enough of that for me to like. Not to say it was brilliant. Volume two was fantastic, a near perfect book. There just wasn't enough of that relationship to make it as iconic as it kind of is. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like
That's fair. That's fair. That's definitely something that happens later. Yeah,
it's like
that's all I'll say.
it's like it's like a lot of Batman relationships. Rarely the most popular Batman relationships. It's not because of just one writer; it's because of multiple. Unlike, say, Superman and Lois Lane, which is Endgame from Action Comics #1. Like,
Mhm.
like you can tell what what was intended there, whereas this was clearly a love interest for characters had many love interests that became iconic over multiple runs and multiple creative teams
Yeah.
making their
Yeah,
mark.
yeah.
Um, and
Anyway,
then we have the end of the run proper.
yeah,
Uh,
Daredevil 191 with a fucking hell of a tagline. How does a man search for his own soul? It doesn't quite prepare you for how hard
no,
this
it
issue is gonna
doesn't.
fucking go, but it certainly sets kind of the tone. Yeah, this is
And
roulette.
I'll say before we get into this one, this is one of those issues where you really should just go read it for yourself. Like
Yeah,
our
us describing it,
discussion.
like a lot of this has to do, I think, with the visual style of this issue. A lot of the stark whites of the
Yeah, I was
hospital
going to say
room
the
are
use of
in throughout this.
lights,
Um,
the
it's
narration, the
yeah,
the whole thematic idea of this being a cycle of because this whole idea is there's this whole cycle of violence theme that runs through the issue, and pieces of influence that Matt's in a way is trying to stop but is failing and only succeeds at the end by chance
yeah.
in the um,
So Matthew has decided to show up in Bullseye's hospital room with a gun with one bullet in it, and has decided to play Russian roulette.
oh, I should say this is the first of the few issues of this where Klaus Janson had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, Clay. Yeah,
This is
this is Miller is both writing and drawing this issue. It's inked by Terry Austin, colored by Lynn Varley, which is kind of fun. But yeah,
I
this
mean,
is
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Some people, mainly Frank Miller defenders, like to disparage Lynn Varley's later work with Miller. Um, it's things like this and The Dark Knight Returns show how much of a goddamn brilliant colorist she is, and
yeah,
she deserves respect,
yeah.
and uh, especially for this
I feel
issue.
like Miller defenders especially should like Lynn Varley, which is, I mean, for obvious reasons.
Here's the
But
thing: a lot of Miller defenders blame her for why The Dark Knight Strikes Again is shit. Like
I mean, she certainly didn't help, but I don't think she was the cause.
I, yeah, I think I have the hot take that I think Varley was trying and experimenting and trying to make it look good, and it didn't. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Anyway,
yes,
so playing Russian roulette, Daredevil shoots once at himself, shoots once at Bullseye, and tells the story to himself. He's not saying any of this narration out loud. None of this is said to Bullseye, so it's kind of made even more haunting by the fact that it is just the framing device of this issue is just Daredevil silently contemplating the nature of the cycle of violence between him
As
and
he is ready to kill, is he ready to
ready to
either
kill
kill
either
this
Bullseye
man?
or himself.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't hold back with himself either. Like you see him aim that gun at himself multiple times.
and
Uh,
you just there's something about the way that Miller writes it that like as I was reading this, I almost could hear just like a clock ticking in the
yeah,
background,
yeah,
like, and there's nothing in it that like of outright says there's a ticking clock outside of obviously the whole Russian roulette theme.
and
But
there's
like you
something.
just get this sense, like
Mhm,
this very rhythmic, methodical sense of things counting down, things coming to an end,
yeah,
crystallizing basically basically everything that Miller had done up to this point into one final goodbye issue.
yeah,
Uh,
and I think made especially powerful at the fact that Matt doesn't know that Elektra is alive, and but us as readers know that Elektra is alive, and Matt's hatred towards Bullseye coming from Elektra's death, um, just making this really really strong stuff. I really really love this.
so I don't even want to go into too many spoilers about the actual story, honestly, because
Yeah, because you should
very
read it yourself, but essentially it does boil down to the story of Matt meeting a man and his child. His child is kind of obsessed with Daredevil. He says that he is Daredevil. He watches Daredevil on the TV, and specifically the one of the fights we point out here is Daredevil fighting Bullseye. So there's that, of course. I realize I've made it this far into a Bullseye conversation and have not joked about anything in his hands being a deadly weapon. Um, which
I
I think
mean, it's
I shouldn't make that joke, but he's holding a bottle on the TV. Anyway, so I don't know how much of this do you want to talk about, spoiler wise? Because we are in full spoilers, but if you don't want to talk about it too much,
yeah.
I'm totally
So
okay with that too.
the whole idea is that this kid is abused by his dad,
Hmm.
his very stern father. Uh, Matt meets this kid as Matt, and then meets him as Daredevil to try to give him some hope. And
It gets turned on its head as once again through this framing device of Matt playing Russian roulette with Bullseye, where we get off our third and fourth shots out of six, mind. Um, the kid is eventually faced with this horrible image of his dad being an actual horrible figure, and Daredevil doing what he does and stopping bad guys, and this kid's dad being a bad guy. Um, all done through this really simplistic, really beautiful, poignant viewpoint of a child is essentially what you see this whole flashback sequence from. Um,
and then we see how it sort of flips this kid's mind to make him empathize with Bullseye,
the
and the cycle
dialogue,
of
yeah,
violence
the dialogue is literally,
continues.
Papa's bad, or Daredevil wouldn't have hit him, and if Papa's bad, so am I, and it's just fucking soul crushing. And we then find out what
E-
is it that in the framing device, of course, that the gun is empty, right? If I'm remembering this right, or is it not? Hang on.
Well,
Oh
we
yeah,
first find out that the cycle of violence continues. This kid finds a gun and
yeah,
uses it,
and shoots another
and
kid.
we get this monologue going back through Daredevil's history, and we crystallize Matt's whole idea of failure, uh, his own psyche,
And his
incredibly
own
well.
yeah, and his own violence that he takes out on others, The way that his father was a boxer, and he used what he learned from his father against other kids around him, and his father reprimanded him for that and hit him, and it was again just this cycle of violence, just continually over and over and over again.
And then there's just this beautiful ending monologue as we get to the sixth bullet. When it comes to that one final fatal active ending, my gun has no bullets. Guess we're just stuck with each other, bullseye. And that's how it ends.
Oh gosh, it's
It
so
is
good.
the
Oh my god.
perfect ending to a
Oh.
run. Like individually, like it's perfect. It's brilliant. One of the best issues of the run. Um, and
Oh
now we have a
man.
bunch of supplemental stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
now
mean,
we have a
it's yeah. There are extra things that Frank Miller did afterwards. He drew an issue of What If that we're about to cover. What If
oddly
28.
enough,
Um,
what if the what if issue before he was actually drawn before was the first thing he drew Daredevil in, really surprisingly. It was
this
released in
one.
1981.
Oh,
Or
okay. Yeah. No.
well, no, wait, that wouldn't be the first. That would be in the middle, right? Because we
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
late
That'd be
70s.
somewhere during the main run. Yeah, we
Yeah,
started in the late
so
'70s.
which
So
I understand then the want to present it here because
yeah, just showing it randomly in
you,
the middle of the run is kind of terrible.
and
So
yeah, it would break up the flow so terribly. I'm
yeah.
also going to be honest. I didn't really love this.
I mean, we don't have to go super in depth. Like you said, it's a 10-page story.
It's a
It's
10-page story. It's the what if question is what if Daredevil became an agent of Shield? So
which
instead of
is
becoming
just like such an odd concept. Like I don't know. I want to say I might be making this up. Is there a what if Daredevil was deaf instead of blind?
I don't know, but there should be.
I think there is, and I don't know when it came out. I want to say it's a real thing. Let me look it up. You can start talking about this.
Yeah. So my big
But I
problem with
swear
this
it's a
one
real
is
thing.
that with the premise. The problem with the premise is that so it's Miller does the art, and the art is actually quite good. It's Miller at the top of his game. The plot is by Miller and Mike W. Barr, and Klaus Janson is back on inks. It's so it's inked very well. The colors are Glynis Wayne, who is fantastic colorist of the era. Um, but the story itself, honestly, not enough changes. Like Matt doesn't seem to be all that different in this proposed what if. Um, like it feels more like a different coat of paint, and that he's working under Shield, and is working under a piece of authority more than anything.
Mhm.
And if I'm gonna be honest, I just did not find that interesting at all.
It's fine. I did like the whole like Jack Murdoch plotline sort of running through the back of it. I thought that was decent. Um, how they sort of like use Matt being an agent of Shield against him and like steal his father. Like it's fine enough. Um, I don't know. It just kind of is what it is. Um, it I don't know. It's fine.
I, I. It also ends with him becoming Daredevil. Like that's the ending.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm like, okay, cool. What was the point? Like, I honestly, I feel like this was the 28th issue of What If. These issues had multiple what ifs. I think they were just throwing things at a wall and trying to see what would stick.
Oh, wait a second. Was What If Daredevil was Deaf Instead of Blind included in one of these collections? It's a
I don't
one page.
think
It's a one-page story that was included in a What If issue, and
I don't.
it's written and drawn by Frank Miller.
Uh, we haven't covered it.
Yep, here it is. It's in the supplemental stuff at the end of this collection.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's like the third page of the like post story stuff.
Post story stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a one-page thing. It's from What If number 34.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought I knew that from somewhere. Yeah, just a cool little concept, and I actually kind of wish that got a full story
That
to
that
itself.
deserves more of that deserves more of a story than
Yeah, than a single page. Yeah.
uh and then
Anyway, let's
so
actually move on. Yeah,
yeah,
let's
so
actually
so
move
we
on.
have now we have Daredevil
219.
219,
Yeah, Frank Miller
a
came back for like a single issue at one
basically a
point.
fill-in issue, which
Yeah.
is a thing that Marv.
I don't know why there's an asterisk by Frank Miller's name in the credits.
Um, I don't know either.
I tried looking it up and I found fucking nothing.
Maybe if I had to guess, maybe there was a an editor's note of guest writer or something that
Maybe.
was removed for this. Um, I will
Maybe. I don't
say
know. It's weird.
I quite like this story in isolation. Um, Mainly because it is in isolation. This is the middle of somebody else's run on Daredevil. Uh,
Mhm.
nearly 30 issues later. Uh,
Yeah. I gotta be real, I
uh,
don't completely vibe with this issue.
I vibe with the loneliness of Matt, and that might be why I vibe with it.
Mm. But this is also an
And
issue where he doesn't become Daredevil at all in this one. Like
no, he's
it
staying.
is just Matt, and even then, Matt is more a background player in it.
Yeah, well, I kind of like that honestly. I like the world that Matt is interacting with uh, outside of just outside of the normal space. What
Mm.
you'd expect to be sort of just a normal space for the character.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know what's going on to make him be going to the new out into New Jersey. Uh, but he's there. He rolls into town quietly, picks several bar fights, um, and ends up uncovering some corruption in this town. Uh, Particularly very nice piece of corruption. Uh, he ends up saying that we find out eventually the police are corrupt. And, finding that they're going to have it in for this stranger in town. Um, but I really like the idea of Matt just as this restless soul who like can't sit still.
Mm.
Um, and eventually, and everything he touches kind of falls apart. Because the issue kind of builds to this point where by saving the day is saved with uh well with a the one person to show Matt kindness dead and houses on fire as Matt just walks away um and leaves, and it's a really I don't know, I just really kind of vibe with the issue.
That's fair.
uh
That's fair. It's just I don't know. I don't know what about it. It just isn't personally my thing. I don't know.
I'm curious,
Maybe,
when you were rereading it, were you reading it like in a bulk reading?
I think I read this. I definitely read this the same day as What If and Love and War. Like I did them
Okay,
all. I did them all like right in a row.
because this was the last thing I read in a sort of a like reading session, if that makes sense. Like,
Okay, so I did this before. I had definitely I knew when I picked this one up. I had definitely planned on uh finishing the volume. Um,
yeah, because
so yeah.
I kind like again, I was able to then read it sort of in its own isolation.
Okay,
Um,
that's
Especially since Love and War is very much tying back into the run proper.
yeah.
Um, Whereas this was just its own thing.
Mhm.
Its own quite good thing. Uh, that being said, shall we get into Love and War? Uh,
Yeah, so this is a graphic novel that is included at the back of this collection. It's actually a fairly important part of the run. I actually, it's funny. I used to have the graphic novel, like, just the graphic novel straight. I have no clue where it is now. I think it was like one of the first comics I ever owned. Actually, I got it from like when I first started collecting comics. I went to like a pawn shop and I got like just a random stack of comics they had there, and this was one of them. And I have no clue what I did with it, and I don't know. I'm glad I at least have in this collection because it's a really good graphic novel.
It's 60 pages, so it's basically 3 issues worth of content, basically, as its own graphic novel. Uh,
Mhm.
Very early graphic novel. This is 1986.
Yeah, yeah.
So, because I
I always, I always
know
feel, I always feel bad to admit I never know how to pronounce this guy's last name on the art.
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Sure, I'll go with that. I'm actually reading stuff with that he drew right now. I'm reading some of his Moon Knight stuff. Um, just good stuff. He's a great artist. He's a fantastic artist, actually. Love
Yeah,
his
but
work.
my point with this is 1986, so early in the graphic novel boom. We are pre-Killing Joke here because, um, like the Killing Joke kind of is what allowed the prestige graphic novel format to boom.
Mhm.
In
And
the
we're
late
2 years
'80s.
off from that at this point.
Yeah. Uh,
So yeah, this being what it is, I think it's really good. Being both a really solid standalone story and one that ties pretty closely into the main run that Frank Miller wrote.
Honestly,
Um,
what I love most is that a lot of this hit on some of the things that I felt were missing in the actual final issues of the run proper.
Mostly a
Um,
focus on Kingpin, which was
exactly, because he
yeah.
had been such an influence, and then kind of just took a back seat, which good reason where Miller was ending things.
Mhm.
Uh,
Also, I swear we could draw a direct line from the way he's drawn in this to Kingpin's design and Into the Spider Verse.
uh, that's literally one of my notes of
Yes,
almost
I love
like honestly, there's a lot of this that feels like even just the style, uh, like parts of the Spider Verse movies may have were inspired a little bit by this,
Mhm.
but that could
It's
also
it's it's
be
it's a it's a very stylistic graphic novel. Like it's a lot more surreal than I think a lot of the main Miller run was. There's
yeah,
there's some strange imagery in here,
and
and
also just
I think like the Kingpin's exaggerated stature, let's say, it lends itself really well to that actually,
I mean
and actually
the
works.
final page of the graphic novel of the graphic novel
Mhm.
is a perfect example of that, where
Yeah, yeah.
it's the
Um,
Kingpin sitting at a desk. Like, is that's the art, but
taking
it's
taking up the entire page pretty much as he
yeah.
takes up the entire screen and into the Spider Verse. But no, I mean, like I think actually we could also like sort of connect those in the way that like, despite the design, like you're still able to make Wilson Fisk a complex, sympathetic character throughout all this.
I mean,
Um,
the design is also going a part of the way in some of the exaggerations.
mhm.
Like, there's a point where Miller's kind of framing him as a big baby when he's shouting "Speak"
Yeah,
to the comatose Vanessa,
yeah,
uh, and then he breaks down in tears, and
yeah.
we get this beautiful panel of their hands and this little bit of tenderness. Like,
It's
there's a
so good.
lot here.
It's so good. Oh my god, I
Uh,
love it. Oh my god.
the one thing The one thing that I will say, one minor complaint, and this is more with the crediting, it's not clear who's doing these colors. It might be
Uh,
Sienkiewicz.
might be.
It might not. Uh,
I kind of doubt it because having seen a lot more of his art now in or you know what actually because he does do the colors in those Moon Knight things I'm reading right now. It might be him on colors. I'm not sure.
uh, yeah, it's just I kind like it's one of those things where I wish they would have had a credit like front and center or made it clear. But again, if it is Sienkiewicz, that I can understand why they wouldn't want to credit. Uh, Why they
Yeah,
wouldn't want to credit him.
usually what it is like an artist doing like all like pencils, inks, colors. Like you do just say like artist, this person. Um,
Yeah, I mean, especially for a prestige graphic novel, like
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Actually, getting into this though, yeah. So this is about this. It is. We're following up on Kingpin. Still trying to get Vanessa to recover from her memory loss, and her basically being comatose right now. it's really sad stuff. In looking out for all this, he has hired various doctors and other such people that are willing to do less than reputable work to work for him in doing all this. We follow various, without getting like too deep into this, because like I said, this is a whole ass graphic novel, and breaking it down bit by bit, it would get a little complex. But I do like the way that Miller, as he often did at a time, gets so personal with like his minor supporting characters. We learn a lot about like these people's like families, people that are only here for this one graphic novel.
I mean, a lot of this graphic novel is from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, and the
That's
things
kind
that
of
he,
that's kind of the trick for it.
yeah, this character is also pretty explicitly a villain, who is just not a good dude, and is kind of obsessed with this woman that he is kind of doing everything for, as he says, and it's kind of messed up, but it's great, and we also follow this doctor that Kingpin has working for him, and his daughter
Who
that
is also
threatening.
obsessed with a woman?
Yeah, well, in this case, it's his daughter. But
Yes. Obsession seems to be a theme,
yeah, yeah,
and
definitely.
using that lens as like a different as like different types of love, relating love to obsession. Um,
Mhm.
One thing I do adore is Matt's entrance.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I do also just love the way that Matt is drawn and included in the color palette of this graphic novel. Like a
Yeah,
lot of things are like cool blues. If it does get into warm colors, it's like soft yellows, things like that. But Matt is this
or
very like
pinks,
yeah, Matt is this very stark red in the middle of this. So he really stands out when he is dressed as Daredevil, and it looks
but
really, really
not quite like the scarlet that he's colored through in the rest of this volume. If that makes
nice.
sense.
It almost
Uh,
does sort of delve into a pinkish red, doesn't it? It's
yeah,
yeah, it's really really nice. Yeah, just this gorgeous way to color Daredevil. I love it. But yeah, it's just fucking awesome. It's a great graphic novel. Yeah, a lot of great characters, a lot of great character designs. Again, it's Psychowix's art that really I think sells this one for me. Um,
it also gets away with some darker stuff that I think the run.
Oh yeah, being a prestige format, graphic novel that
It's a
is
graphic
probably
novel, was not
it's
beholden to the Comics Code Authority.
yeah, yeah, it could very much kind of do whatever it wanted, and very much does. It gets pretty fucking dark, especially in this villain perspective character. Who's this really fucked up ratty face design that I really really love is almost cartoonish in that same way that Kingpin is drawn this almost cartoonish way in how large he is. This character has a almost like animal like face, I would say. That is literally rodent like, I would say.
I
It's
mean,
really,
part
really
of that is because this entire thing is surreal. Like,
yeah. It's meant to be really trippy. You know what the style kind of reminds me of, and I'm now blanking on who did the art for it because it's the one good thing about that 2-part Constantine mini series from the end of Volume Two.
of the
The
horrorists.
Horrorist, yeah. I forget who did the art on that now. I'm kind of mad at myself for that. Oh God, who was it? Fuck. What's the name? Anyway, point being, it kind of reminds me of that. Maybe just in the maybe also in how it's handling its more
Was it
adult themes. What's
was
up?
it David Lloyd?
Yes, it was. Thank you, David Lloyd. Kind of reminds me of that. Both in the tone of the graphic novel, but also yeah, in this sort of like almost watercolor esque art style here, which again just really complements the entire story. Especially though, actually, if you're looking in the collection on page 246, that great panel of Matt holding Cheryl. Really, really great stuff. I love that. Has this beautiful.
Because Matt has to rescue her, and it's there. It's a lot. This is one that kind of also ends largely in tragedy for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, because of that, like Matt as a character is kind of more of an outsider. Um, he's not that he's not in it a lot because he obviously is in it a lot. He's just very much not the perspective character. So it almost seems like he's taking a back seat, but he's really just not the character we're focusing on at all. Like he's again, because our perspective character is, I forget the name of this guy, the rat face man,
All Monday.
yes, who is uh who, like, we're seeing like him, like how he views Daredevil a lot of the time. Yet Daredevil is still very much our hero. Is still very much the guy like saving the day in the end. Really, really great stuff, and yeah, I love it. It really is. It's just a great graphic novel. It's simple. Oh, I shouldn't say simple because it is somewhat convoluted. But
It is it is complex, and it's playing on surrealism, and it builds to it just a really really nice ending.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's great
very
stuff.
nice.
And that, I suppose, is Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, Volume 3.
Yes.
Less Klaus Janson than there was before, but certainly plenty of Frank Miller. So
Certainly plenty of, and mostly good Frank Miller.
yes, we did win somehow. So that was that. Overall, since I guess we properly finished the run, like I said, there is definitely more Miller Daredevil stuff to do in the future. But this is the main run. What did we think?
Honestly, Run as a whole, best Miller thing we've read. Like,
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think it blows Dark Knight Returns in year one out of the water, aka the other um, famous good Miller books. Uh, I'm trying not to avoid a sneeze because I feel a sneeze coming on.
Okay, take over for a second. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly better than Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Literally,
Everything we've covered on the
literally
podcast.
everything else we've covered on the podcast is better than Dark Knight Strikes Again. But yeah,
We haven't covered anything close to as bad as Dark Knight Strikes Again.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
like,
So
um, but yeah, I think it makes me feel like I wish we had more things by this Frank Miller. Honestly,
mm,
because a lot of the anger and the passion is still there,
yeah,
but it's directed and there is a leash, like to not let him do just whatever the hell he wants. Because
I mean, a lot of times he is kind of doing whatever he wants, but I think Frank Miller had such. I mean, honestly, he had such a different mindset at the time. Like, I don't know, his. Let's be real. There was a time when Frank Miller was considered a radical political figure.
as well as progressive.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, a radical progressive political figure. Radical progressive political figure, Frank Miller. Who would have thought? But
uh, then, well,
Miller's rage was focused in the right areas. It really, really was. I think you mostly see that in his Batman work. For the most part, with
yes.
Daredevil, like he's just telling some damn good stories. And
I mean, he still has had some
oh,
things to say about
oh yeah,
crime and New York and the
oh
failings of
definitely.
the system.
You especially
Um,
see that in 191 and 219.
yeah,
But
which makes a lot of sense. He started the run uh, before Reagan took office, and uh, by this point, Reagan had been in office a couple of years, and then by 219 was in Reagan starting his second term.
yep.
So
And then Dark Knight Returns happened, and everything was let's fuck with Reagan. So, yeah,
for for good reason.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. And honestly, you have not even gotten to peak Frank Miller yet. So that's also the thing. I know your opening bit of the episode was that, hey, we're running out of good Frank Miller things, but you haven't even seen the best Frank Miller yet, in my opinion. So we will
as
certainly.
far as I am aware, we have two more episodes of good Frank Miller left.
2.5, depending on a certain thing. But yeah, depending on how you view a certain thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's difficult. I mean, unless we cover some stuff that he just drew, because then I can
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
like
Um. I
that
mean,
could be
and also the resurgence of the Dark Knight Returns universe with the helping hand of Brian Azzarello is better than Dark Knight Strikes Again for the most part. So,
I
um,
That is a low bar to clear.
That is true. That is true. I will say though, I do like there's a great one shot called Last Crusade, which is basically like it's meant to depict like uh Bruce and Bruce's like last time as Batman before he retired. So yeah, it's genuinely good in my opinion at least. But all that said, do you want to reveal what the next episode of Fresh Face
Yeah,
Comics is, Jacob? Again, for those listening that don't remember, Jacob knows this current block because he kind of chose it. So he chose.
I kind of chose it.
He chose to do continuations of Marvel books we've already covered. So take it away.
Say next, as with the last episode, last two episodes bringing in guests we've had before. We have a guest next time. We will be joined by one Mason Peters to finish out the Planet Hulk saga with the Marvel event, the five-issue Marvel event, World War Hulk by Greg Pak.
Yeah, that'll be
drawn
Baby's first Marvel event.
Baby's first Marvel event. Also, Baby's first book with art by John Romita Jr.
Yeah. Oh man, that's fun. That's really fun. Yeah.
So that will be next time. After that, we have one more Marvel episode. Also,
and again, you can probably already guess what it is. But hey, stick around to find
out. Hey, stick around. Also, possibly, potentially with a guest if we can work schedule. That's when we have to make sure we work scheduling out. That might be a little tricky.
It could happen. Could be fun.
We're gonna try to make it happen.
We'll see what happens. All right. Otherwise, promotions. What do you got going on?
I have my blog. You can tell we've been going at this for a while, and I'm getting slightly tired as I become delirious. My blog where I've been review books. This month haven't reviewed a whole lot of books. I've mainly been reviewing Star Trek the Animated Series, which at the time of this coming out, we will have just
put out the Time Trap, right? The Time Trap.
Yes,
that's it.
That's why I can't remember the title because it's a generic title.
We're caught in a space time trap. Which I do reference in that Star Trek video when that comes out. So
of course you do. And of course I've been doing that in parallel with Joey's videos on the subject.
It's true, yeah. Speaking of the videos, we release Star Trek videos every Saturday, me and my brother. So check those out. Yeah, same thing, Time Trap, and then whatever is coming out the following week. Star Trek the Animated Series is a lot harder to remember than TOS. So there's that. Also on the channel, we've had R2BD coming out recently. We have an episode on the Acolyte coming up in the nearest future. On that episode, we're also talking other High Republic things, so check that out. We also just recently released an episode on Tales of the Empire, and other book and the book Shadow of the Sith, and the comic Thrawn, the Thrawn adaptation of the Timothy Zahn book. It's a confusing thing. Anyway, also, Breaking Brian is a series that exists somewhere in the space-time continuum. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, and I'm sure the last episode will come out at some point in my lifetime. Also, in Fresh Face Comics, obviously there's the podcast here that we do, but we also do Fresh Face One Shots, the spinoff of this where we cover current comics that are coming out. We've been covering Superman by Joshua Williamson, Wonder Woman by Tom King, Batman: The Brave and the Bold by Various, Absolute Power, the summer DC event. We've been covering all of that so far with Ground Zero and Number One, and also obviously the Superman and Wonder Woman tie-ins. There's a whole big playlist of that you can find on the channel for Absolute Power. We also started covering the mini-series Death in the Family, Robin Lives, which has been incredibly fun so far. I shouldn't say fun. It's kind of harrowing, but it's really great.
It's been really good.
It's really good. So
we will be, and we will be starting, actually, I think
in a little over a week, we're starting up another ongoing in Fresh Face One Shots. I think I should reveal it this time. You got the last one.
Yeah.
We're going to start covering Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone on Fresh Face One Shots. That starts up on the issue comes out August 7th. We'll probably have it out like a day or two after. So we'll see. I'll try my best to get it as fast as possible to soak up the sweet Blood Donut Studios clout. But yeah, Uncanny X-Men. I'm excited for it. It was your idea, really.
It was my idea.
So, and I'm very glad that you chose it. So awesome. All right. Otherwise, link trees and everything, or they'll be all be in the description below. You can check that out there, as well as Amazon links to the books we covered today and next time on the podcast. Those will all be in the description below. You can check all that out there. And I think that about does it. So thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to leave a rating, subscribe wherever you're listening to us at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
and Jacob Lickliner.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.